Hi, I'm Two-Siders. Welcome back to Against the Storm. In this video, we will discuss the changes brought on by the 1.5 update, including a brand new resource, a brand new biome, new cornerstone, and balance changes. Subscribe for more Against the Storm content, and let me know what you think of the new resource, Salt. Personally, I already have enough salt when I fail my timed orders, so I don't really need it separately. In a couple of days, I will make a video on the Ashen Thicket. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring it to you today because, as you can see, we are right next to the Titanium Seal, and to see a new biome, you need to reset the cycle, which is absolutely not something I want to do right now. I worked really hard on trying to finish this cycle by Wednesday this week, but I couldn't manage to get it. So let's talk about the balance changes this update brings. I don't just want to read everything off of this list like many other YouTubers might do. I want to concentrate on the most important stuff, but I might talk at length about some of these small changes, but some of these small changes I think bring some additional difficulty to the game, so I want to discuss them further. One thing I want to point out to you is how amazing these developers are. If you remember, in our 1.4 video, and all the discussions on the forums, many of us have complained that the Keepers of the Stone DLC didn't exactly have enough content. And guess what? We are deeply grateful to everyone who trusted us and gave it a try. Keepers of the Stone felt like a weaker value proposition on its own. So what the devs did, they listened to our feedback and they actually added more content to the DLC. Now, let me just quickly point out, right now Against the Storm is 15 euros. The DLC is actually something similar in price. I've been playing this Hunter game, but I'm not specifically talking about this game. In general, video games, right? Like even this game, all the DLC content that is pretty much copy-pasted stuff costs 230 euros, okay? We got a bunch of free stuff in free updates even before Keepers of the Stone. So the fact that these devs listened to player feedback, implemented all these changes, all these balance changes, all these bug fixes is literally so insane. I just wanted to point it out to you. This does not happen in the gaming industry nowadays. Like I said, the Ashen Thicket, the Cornerstone Forge will be a separate video in a couple of days. Check out my Cornerstone Forge video from a couple of weeks ago on the experimental branch. But basically, there is this new biome. The Cornerstone Forge, you get these resources for completing glade events, and then you can forge your own unique cornerstones, and there were some really good broken ones when I last tried. You can pay like a penalty, like a negative effect, to even increase the yields from these cornerstones. But let's talk about the other changes now. The impactful change, in my opinion, is the addition of a new resource, salt. You can use the mine building to mine out salt, similarly to coal and copper. And salt is a type of resource that you can use to craft mostly food items as one of the ingredients. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed when it comes to salt. I thought it would be more impactful, but at the same time, I haven't tried it yet, and most likely the overall game feel will become much better with this resource. Salt was added to recipes such as, you know, biscuits, paste, jerky, all these food items, but also crystallized dew, incense, and water skins. Water skins now don't require meat or oil, which is great because water skins, I feel like, is the weakest container because you almost always want to use, you know, the leather for boots. Boots are so insane. They provide a 15% movement speed bonus to those who wear it. And the meat and oil you can always use for other stuff, okay? But now you can use salt instead of the meat and oil. Good change. Not really impactful. You can use salt instead of the fuel to make jerky, but I will be excited to see how this jerky recipe plays out nonetheless. Incense, crystallized dew. Incense is already so insane. Sorry for the bad pun. It's the best complex item. But paste, I was gonna expect something like this. A lot of people complained about the dye. They changed some dye recipes around, but they didn't really increase the overall dye buildings that can produce dye. But adding a substitute for dye, I was expecting this 100%, and that's a good change, I guess. There were some recipe changes for biscuits and pie. like we've discussed, salt can be now used for biscuits. And not only salt, but eggs were moved from the pie recipe to the biscuit recipe. So now these two recipes were kind of balanced. In case you didn't really realize, pies were so much more insane than biscuits. Yes, we had the biscuit diet cornerstone, which was super insane, but overall you had more ingredients for to make pie. So now it's 5 for both of these, and it's pretty insane because the second ingredients almost doubled for the biscuits. Instead of 3, there are now 5. Pies were already really good to produce because of Sahil the Secret Cookbook, which basically spawned jerky out of thin air. You didn't even have to create pies using meat. And like I said, fewer races eat biscuits, so this is a good change, even though the biscuit cornerstone is pretty good for farming, for instance. Another thing that that this salt edition changes is a buff to mines. So mines are more useful nowadays. They also buffed mines because coal and copper takes overall much less time to produce. When it comes to the map and the biome distribution, we see another change in the biome distribution. At the 1.4 update, Royal Woodlands was seen much less frequently. It was still the most seen biome, okay? Royal Woodlands is kind of the easiest biome to play on, even though it's really difficult to create something like metal over there, you know, crystallized dew and copper. Royal Woodlands, I guess we can all agree, is the easiest biome. It has the fewest amount of mechanics, and it's pretty much the simplest one. Well, in the 1.5 update, they changed the biome distribution once again. So Royal Woodlands is no longer the most common biome. The way I understood it is it's gonna be just as common as every other biome, except of course the Cursed Royal Woodlands, which should turn up much less frequently, which is good because it's one of the more complicated biomes. It might be the most difficult biome besides of course the Sealed Forest ones. Besides the Ashen Thicket, they also added a new world event. You know, these you know, I am not even sure if it's a world map modifier or one of these it's one of these quests actually. Okay, good to know. Because these quests are pretty somewhat rare, okay? Now the developers also increased the frequency of these world event quests, which is a good thing because at the beginning of every cycle, as you can see behind my extremely large body, we have some quest rewards. You want to do quests at the beginning of a cycle so you have a lot of rewards by the end of the cycle and for multiple settlements and for the sealed map. And anyways, what they added is something called the Forsaken Town. I guess it's kind of similar. You know, there were those world event modifiers that started you in a glade with many salvageable buildings. It's like that, but on drugs, okay? It's a little bit more complicated than that. You can negotiate the price on this world event. You know, there's always 2 options for world events, and you can get bigger rewards. And this event has a slightly higher spawn rate, so I'll be looking forward to trying this. What most people might not realize regarding this new world event, even the developers didn't really say it, but this is such a good change because the Forsaken Town world event actually indirectly buffs the Explorer's Lodge, one of the more weaker service buildings that gives you extra global resolve for each salvaged or repaired building. Whereas before it was, well, it still is just a super random service building because you can never make sure to get salvageable buildings. Yes, the Frog Starter ability shows you one on the map, but, you know, if you start in a Forsaken Town and you get Explorer's Lodge, but it's still luck, right? Whether you get this building or not. Now this stupid service building will finally see some use. Thank God. I just wanted to point out that they added 2 extra forest mysteries related to fish production and leather production. These are really good because fish right now is the only resource besides insects, the only food resource that you cannot reproduce. You can only gather it from camps. And it really sucks that recipes like paste requires, you know, fish. You cannot reproduce it, but with this first mystery, it's gonna be much better. This +3 to fish production and these production perks are actually so insane. I had the mushroom one before. It's just so good. It basically quadruples the production of these resources at the very beginning of a game. Always good to see. And I find this funny that they added leather production too, because in the community we have a joke that I think it's so difficult to gather enough leather to make boots from, and other community members might say that it's easy. But I am super happy about this positive forest mystery. I think it's such a pain in the ass to try to gather leather from those, you know, new harvestable exoskeletons on some of the maps. They also added 2 new cornerstones. One of them is related to frogs, the other one is related to fishing. Now, we already had a fishing cornerstone in the Book of Water. I don't really like this cornerstone at all. I know some community members might love this, but it's even a difficult thing to be able to tell which recipes this cornerstone affects. So you fish out, you know, fish scales or algae, and for every 60 of them, you get double chance yields for recipes that use rainwater. So I guess like porridge, crystallized dew. Some people said it might affect those, you know, clay pit building. Some people said it doesn't. I think it does, but it's just a weird cornerstone all around. And you still need to produce a bunch of crops, because if you remember, pack of crops increases the yields from fish ponds. So it's kind of a weird cornerstone that you should wait for the packs of crops, but you also shouldn't. Well, they added fish scraps, and it puts another twist on this. I should craft pack of crops, but I shouldn't. I should just fish out the stuff, because when you use fish and scales, interestingly enough, not algae, because I feel like you get more algae than fish and scales. When you use 100 units of these 2 materials, you gain +2 to the pack of crops production. This is a weird cornerstone, because again, you need to fish out the ponds to make use of it, but then you need to find other ponds, and the only map in the entire game that has a lot of fish ponds is actually the Coastal Grove. So I don't think I'm gonna pick this cornerstone, though it does sound nice. And the other cornerstone they added was related to frogs. We already have City of Wonders and Strength in Numbers that were also frog-only cornerstones. I don't really like these either, but they added a really cool one actually, Overzealous Architects. You basically upgrade frog houses, right? And when you fully upgrade 5 frog houses, so that's, you know, 4 levels of housing upgrades, you get random blueprints. So it's like sending out those stupid expeditions for the random blueprints, right? And then you get 4 random blueprints, and then this disappears. And yes, random is never good in games like this, but you get 4 of them, which is pretty decent. I'm definitely gonna pick this one when I see it. I wouldn't say it's broken though. Normally, with frog house upgrades, I cannot really show you actually in the UI, but there are 4 levels, and I only go to level 3 because that's when I can produce 3 packs of building materials every drizzle season, and I normally stop at, you know, level 3. Not because level 4 is bad, because it's hard to say whether the level 4 frog house upgrades are good or not, because it's like a percentage based one, and it's always, you know, packs of building materials, that's something concrete, whether but the percentage based upgrades are, you just never know how good they are actually. But I'm glad they added this cornerstone, because now I'm definitely gonna upgrade frog houses to the max level. Since we started talking about the Coastal Grove, let's talk about the Strider port, because the developers once again listened to our feedback, but they also didn't exactly, okay? So instead of reading this wall of text, let me just say it very simply and shortly. They reduced the food requirements to send out expeditions. It's only 10 to 15% though. I guess you didn't really need that much to begin with. And this wasn't the main thing I heard on the forums that was a criticism to the Strider port, to be honest. The main criticism we've had about the Strider port was that when you increase the resources that you want to spend on an expedition, that will also increase the time it takes for the Strider to come back with the blueprint and the non-blueprint, you know. And that really sucked, because it felt like you are paying extra to wait extra. And it was a major difference. It was like 3 minutes to like 5 minutes, right? I personally don't utilize the Strider port nearly as much as I should. I always forget about it from the mid-game. I'm glad they reduced the amount of food needed, but I don't think it's enough. And I think they should still also reduce the time requirement it takes when you increase the resources. We even had the idea to not increase time at all. I would, to be honest, I would be happier if the food requirement was increased, but the time was completely taken out. So it always takes 3 minutes to send out an expedition, no matter how much resources you want to spend. There were some smaller changes here that I highlighted. You can read them if you want. I'm not going to mention these. What I'm going to mention though is that the Master Blueprint Cornerstone, you know, this cornerstone that unlocks all the level 2 camp buildings, but it reduces the camp or gathering speed unless you gather some charges. Well, it had a weird history. I'm pretty sure it didn't affect fishing huts, and then it did, but now it doesn't again. So the developers take the fishing hut as a completely separate gathering building from, you know, the food gathering stuff. So it's basically like there's a woodcutter camp, there's the food gathering stuff, I guess a harvest camp as well, and now there's also a separate thing which is fishing, okay? Master Blueprints will no longer give you the fishing hut. Luckily, it will also not affect, the 50% decrease will also not affect the fishing, but I would rather get the level 2 fishing hut because that's the main point of picking Master Blueprint. Technically, it received a buff because I guess you need to gather 250 charges instead of 300, but still. I'm sure the developers had, they're more intelligent than me in this case. I just really don't know why they would remove the fishing hut. Now, I wanted to leave, guys, I wanted to leave the most important change to the end of the video. And that is none other than the randomize button next to your town name. In case you didn't know, you can name your town whatever you want. Good to know. But now it's randomized. You can get a bunch of randomized town names. Most important change. Thank you so much, devs. They literally fixed like 53 separate bugs in the game. And guess what? 14 new music tracks have been added. You know, when I'm working in my day job, I always listen to that soundtrack from the Coastal Grove that goes like... You probably know which one I'm on about. Also, performance and stability changes. Oh, and something I forgot to mention with the cornerstones. A bunch of this cornerstone received a new icon, okay? I was happy with the previous icons, to be honest, but these are pretty cool. It's really funny. When I was looking for the new cornerstones, I just went by, you know, my memory, and I thought, oh wow, they added like 50 more cornerstones, but no, they just changed the icons. But these are pretty cool. I especially like Zork's secret ingredient that looks like something right out of Naruto or something. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. This has been Two-Siders. Subscribe for more, like the video, comment below whether you like the new salt updates or not. And I shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Maybe you'd like to check out this video next.